The big deal on Wall Street is the Japanese trade deal, but the big deal for me is the squeeze taking place in stocks like Krispy Kreme and GoPro. Our take on all the big news of the day and more on today's Rebel's Edge.
All right. Well, there's John Najarian. He looks so different today. I swear to you, every time.
Bang. It's me, John Najarian, everyone.
Boy, you got a lot of hair in a hurry. I don't know what's going on over there, but I'm in on whatever it is because I. All right, let's jump into the macro, man. Let's get her started. It's a really big deal. This big deal, man. And I got to tell you, it's going to be really, we're going to be hearing about this one. And I'll tell you, we were looking at a lot of different things. That right there, that picture right there just sort of says it all. They scratched out that 400 billion, it's 500 billion. And then we hear numbers like 550 billion. So whatever the deal is, it does have people pretty excited. The markets are sort of starting to rip to the upside to some degree. We'll see if that continues through the whole day or not. But I can tell you, it right now is moving pretty nice, and volatility is starting to move back down.
Yeah, 100%. And that kind of blends into what I was going to say for the fantastic futures, which is exactly that. The market is getting so relaxed. We haven't actually had a 1% move up or down in the S&P in the past month, I believe. And the VIX is definitely reflecting that.
You know, one other thing, and I'll throw this in for a fantastic future as well, which is nat gas. And nat gas, do we talk about it? Yes, we do. But do we talk about it as much as we talk about crude oil? Probably not. Probably for a lot of the reasons that people probably can think of. But in March, we're sitting right around $4.37. You know where we are now? Well, we were at $3.13 just a few minutes ago. But then just before we came on, I looked again. We're down to $3.08. So starting to move in the right direction for us. That I think is a really good thing. In April, it was 293 was the low. So we'll see if we can get near those year-to-date lows that we were seeing in nat gas. Outside of that, I would just say this range in the volatility index gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And, you know, I started this thing out when it was 18 to 22. We're now all the way down to 16 to 18 yesterday. I can tell you this, I think we're a heck of a lot closer to just being 16. That's what the range is right now for the VIX. Is it 1594? Yep. Is it a little bit over 16? Yep. But I think the range has gotten so tight that it's making things pretty interesting. And when you look at all the markets and how they're moving, it makes a lot of sense. They're moving even hundreds of points for the Dow. What is that on a percentage basis? Not that much. So it actually makes a lot of sense that we're going down, down, down.
It does. And the only other thing I would mention is that during the month of August over the past decade, the VIX has actually risen about 70% of the time. Average rise is about 18%. Now, I think we front ran a lot of the gross September seasonality ahead of time with this correction that took place during a part of the year where it doesn't normally happen. But I still wouldn't be surprised to see some upticks here, especially as we're coming around earnings season. Maybe somebody says something that the market doesn't like and we get one of those bigger days. But for now, yeah, a low VIX means it's an interesting time in the market. But still, I would encourage everyone to stay on your toes.
Yep, absolutely. You never know. And matter of fact, just the other day, we saw a little bit of VIX being bought, the options of the VIX. So it isn't 50 cents. It wasn't nearly that big, but it was sizable enough that it stood out a little bit. So I thought that was pretty interesting. All right, let's just jump up to our first of four stocks that we're going to cover. We're actually covering two in this particular case. We're looking at Toyota and we're looking at Honda. And why are we looking at that? Well, because Trump, once again, talked about the largest deal ever made. And I got to tell you something. You might not want to pat him on the back if you're somebody who's a hater, but I will say this. He is going in and doing what he said he was going to try to do. And the executions have been pretty good. The investment from Japan of $550 billion into the U.S., 90% of the profits going in the right direction. I mean, there's a lot of things going on here. And when you look at what's happening with the auto tariffs that went from 25% down to 15%, well, I think that's a good reason why when we look at Toyota, it's near the 52-week highs. And if you look at Honda, it's actually hitting the new 52-week highs of about $34. So a lot of good things going on right now. And Japan certainly has unlocked a lot for what's going on in the markets.
Yeah, 100%. pretty much all the automakers are doing really well today, at least all the large ones. I mean, GM's up a ton, Ford's up a ton, obviously Toyota's up a ton. I think there's just general optimism that maybe some of these deals are going to get done. We do have that August 1st date kind of lurking around, and that one's supposed to be the one that's set in stone. But I think that there's no reason for the market not to feel a little bit better about the trade situation after this particular deal getting done.
All right, next up, we got Fiserv. Now, this is not a name that we talk about all that frequently, but payment technology is basically the basis of what it is that they do. Is stock's down about 20%. That's looking pretty ugly. It might be a little bit overdone as far as what we're seeing going on today, but it did hit a new 52-week low, 128 bucks. So something to keep an eye on. And what are people so mad about? Well, they missed on their estimates as far as the earnings. So, and the revenue, excuse me, not on the earnings, but on the revenue. So that is something that people watch all the time, very closely. Obviously, this is the midst of earnings season. It's a huge week this week. This is just one of many names. But over the last 6 months, I'm looking at this name, and it's down 35%. At some point, I think it turns around. I look at the balance sheet. I look at a lot of the different things that we probably would look for when we're trying to see if there's anything worthwhile buying on the lower end. This might be one of those. Not all the numbers were terrible. It was just primarily one or two numbers that they delivered today that I think really smacked this stock down. But I think at some point it gets a little bit ridiculously low. Maybe not today. Today's probably not the day to try to bottom pick this thing.
100%. I wouldn't do it today either. They completely wiped out their yearly gains. That's rough. But there is kind of an interesting level here. If you really zoom out, there's a high from just before COVID started in February 2020 at, I think, 122. And there's another, what ended up being a double top, a nice hard resistance at about 124 from March 2021. If we can get down there, just about $12 more from here, which would not be much to ask. For those who like to catch falling knives, I think that this could actually be an interesting spot to try and do it. This is usually resistance turns into support, especially long-term, well-established resistance.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I'm not sure I want to do it today, but it's something I think
Definitely
that we
not.
should have sitting there, just watching, just seeing if we start to see any kind of a positive turn and some other reasons maybe that we'd get a little bit more excited. All right, let's jump up to the next one. Probably the most exciting category of the day, I think, the meme stocks. The meme stocks are back, baby. I mean, they're back in a big, big way too. This is kind of turned back into crazy town. With John and I over the last few sessions of this, we've been talking about what's going on, right? And we've been talking about specifically Open Door and some of the unusual option activity that we had seen in there. Huge call buying, blah, blah, blah. Stock was 50 cents, got up to $1.50, then $3. Next thing you know, yesterday, it just was sniffing right around that $5 level. Well, that's pulling back today, but this is something that we're seeing a lot of the money flows that are coming into the markets. This is a direction where people are going. They're going to QuantumScape. They're going to Krispy Kreme. They're going to GoPro. But I got one more for you. How about this one? We've had some unusual option activity in Kohl's, KKS, or KSS. So this one's pretty daggone interesting. You know why? 47% short interest. I think they really squeezed some people yesterday in this stock. The stock was up 34, 5, something like that. Now today it's down, but it is all part of these meme trades. They don't always just go straight up, but they're going up in these levels and they're jumping and then pulling back. This is really, really interesting to see what's going on here. And I think a lot of it has to do with some of that fresh money that's coming in, looking for some big plays right out of the gate because of the fact there are some massive shorts, and in most cases, massive shorts that are sitting out there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's even more. I mean, Beyond Meat, I don't know if they're popping today because it's such a, here today, gone tomorrow thing, but FFAI, that was another one. There's a lot in it. Wolf Speed, I believe is the one. A lot of these stocks that are so cheap that it is a good idea to maybe give it a shot if you see them popping intraday, but it's an even better idea to be very, very disciplined. And honestly, I really think options are the only way to go in a lot of these low dollar stocks where you can spend so little and potentially get such a great reward. And in the event that it doesn't work out and the squeeze doesn't continue, then what's the worst thing that happens? You measured your risk at the outset and then you don't get trapped owning a whole lot of a stock that you don't really want to own and was just a trade. And when you're looking at these, there's nothing wrong with trading these on a short-term time frame, maybe the weekly options, maybe if it's Friday, even a 0 DTE option, as long as you are, like I said, extremely disciplined. You can find some good deals here, but remember, these are literally here today, gone tomorrow options. If you put a bunch of money into these options, it could literally be gone tomorrow if you're wrong. That's the danger of 0 DTE, but also the reward of 0 DTE options when given the opportunity.
That tight time frame is something that, you know what, if you know what you're doing and you're comfortable, if you're comfortable with it, understandable, then what the heck. But know what that really means, that that it is a short time frame, basically. All right, how about Texas Instruments? Now, this one is pretty interesting in its own way. It got hit pretty hard. The stock was up right near the 52-week highs. So like many of those in the semiconductor world or whatever, they were starting to hit those levels and pushing. Well, now today, a pretty decent pullback on this. And why is that? Well, the earnings. And it was a little bit tricky. The earnings just barely missed, but they did miss. And I think people are they're sitting there thinking about the fact that this stock has gone up. It's near the 52-week highs. So maybe it's got a little bit more room to the downside. Maybe not. We'll see. But year over year, when you look at the sales and the earnings up 16%, I would say that's a pretty good number. So I don't know how much further Texas is going to fall, but I think it's one that I think you should have up in front of your screen each and every day, because if you're not all that interested right now, maybe you'll become more interested in the next couple of days, maybe next couple of weeks.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. And the only thing that I thought was really interesting about this is that we actually, the other day, I believe it was yesterday, but it may have been Monday, saw some unusual activity in the XOXS, which is the kind of anti-SMH. It's the inverse SMH, whatever you want to call it. The inverse SOXX, I suppose you would say. Essentially, it's a bearish bet on the semiconductors, and you see that XOXS, there we go. It's now up about 3.5% today. It's a pretty large move for an ETF like that, and it's almost certainly because of this earnings in Texas Instruments. And it just goes to show you there is more than one way to skin a cat, and there's more than one way to trade something like an important earnings in the market. Something like this through UOA can be exactly a fruitful way to do that.
All right, next up, we got some sports. I know you love it, so we're going to get into the sports. We're not going to go too deep into everything, but I think there's a lot of fun things out there. I think we got a picture of Jared Goff ready to roll with us, and I'll tell you what's so impressive about this. When you see this, look at if you can't, try to make it bigger, whatever you've got to do. But let me tell you something. This guy, you want to talk about a generous person. This guy just got a $15.9 million bonus. And you know what he did with that bonus? He gave the entire thing to homeless folks. So, it gives you one more reason to maybe kind of like a guy like Jared Goff, who, yes, he makes a lot of money. I get it. But let's just think about this, guys. We're talking about nearly $16 million that he's just saying, you know what? This is who I am. This is what I care about. I don't think people should be having to sleep on the streets and all the rest of it, and blah, blah, blah. But we'll talk about kind and generous. This is absolutely phenomenal. And on top of that, I think we should jump right into it, because I had the Detroit Lions as one of those that I wanted to talk about. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is the NFL has already started. For the people who don't know, the camps are going on. It's kind of craziness out there. There's a lot of people waiting on contracts and a lot of people angry about the fact that they haven't gotten signed yet and all the rest of it. But I thought I'd focus right there back at the Detroit Lions, because I look at this team that looked like a potential Super Bowl team this past year. They did not make it, but daggone it, they were good. They also lost the offensive coordinator because they were so good, the defensive coordinator because they were so good. Johnson and Glenn, both are gone. So what happens to the Detroit Lions this year? Well, they get back Aiden Hutchinson, which I think is a really big deal. They get a lot of other guys back that are getting a little bit more salty, a little bit more experience right now in terms of how their football is, because they had so many draft picks in the last 3 or 4 years. We're talking about guys that are still 23, 24 years old. So they're going to get that much better. I love the head coach, Dan Campbell. I think the world of him. And here's a question I've got for you. As much as I've just gone on and on about Detroit, who will win the NFC North, which is the category of your Minnesota Vikings, you got the Green Bay Packers, you got the Detroit Lions, you got the Chicago Bears, right? who wins it? But outside of that, even more importantly, can all four of them, because they're really good teams right now, and I know you follow this more than I joke about, Justin, but I think all four of these teams could get in the playoffs. I think that's how good they are. And the AFC has the AFC East or whatever, but this is the NFC North. And I'll tell you, I am so impressed with all of them. JJ McCarthy with the Vikings, everybody's all excited about that. The Bears, because of the new coach, everybody's excited about that. The Packers and Jordan Love, is he going to continue to rise the way he did last year? There's a lot of reasons to think that maybe all four could potentially be in the playoffs. What do you think right now? I know you like watching this stuff, man.
I actually totally think that this could happen. So the North's the only division with all teams at plus 170 odds or better to qualify. Last year, 3 punched the ticket. No division, though, has sent all four since the playoff expansion from what I've read. So, with cannibal games like Lions at Packers, someone could get left out. It's tough to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting, though. And I'll tell you what, these are all the storylines that come out now that when you start camp, everybody's now looking ahead, right? And as guys do finish up signing those contracts and everything, it gets that much more interesting. And, they literally are still big kids, man. I mean, as a guy who actually was lucky enough to play there, I was just a big kid running around, having a great time. Contracts and everything, leave that up to the agent. Just get what you can get and get out there on the football field and have a lot of fun. All right, next up. Not to too much football, but I got college football for you right now. There's two schools that I think are really, really interesting and have incredible coaches that are there. Curt Cignetti is the head coach at Indiana. Indiana is a basketball school. They have never been thought of much as a football school, at least not in my lifetime they haven't. But let me tell you something. Last year, new coach, he brought in the right guy at quarterback. That guy's now in the NFL. And he just brought in another really good quarterback. They signed this kid from Cal who had a great year last year as well, Mendoza. So they're expecting big things again from Indiana as far as where they're going to go, which is really interesting because when you look at the Big Ten, you're going to always talk about Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. Those are your leaders. Well, some of that got jumbled up a little bit last year with Indiana. And the other one is Illinois. And Illinois is a really interesting one because Brett Bielema is a polarizing guy who's the guy that I think I would love to have played football for. He's younger than me, by the way, but he's just that kind of guy as a coach where, you love to have him on your side. You'd hate his guts if you were on the other side. And he is a guy who you want to talk about people who talk trash. Bielema is one of them as a coach, as a player. Heck, he was a player that when he was playing at Iowa, playing against Iowa State, he came up to the other coach and he said, you're a big prick. It's been a pleasure kicking your ass for the last 5 years. I mean, who says that to the opposing coach? But it makes for fun. It makes for a lot of things. But what I find out the most interesting is Indiana and Illinois suddenly become powers last year. I mean, these guys won more games, double-digit wins, than they've won in a really, really long time. So can they do it again? Can they get past Michigan? Can they, or at least up with Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State? I also got my Minnesota Gophers, who I think look a little bit better each and every year. Had a great time as far as signing kids this past year as well. So what do you think? Is it still going to be Ohio State, Michigan, and maybe Penn State, or is there room for others to maybe start sneaking up and start getting closer and closer to winning it?
It's tough to say. I hear everything you're saying. I was going to come in and say that I think Oregon comes in and dethrones Dylan Gabriel, but I think Illinois and Indiana probably crash the top four party. It's going to be a dense conference is my take.
Yeah. Well, it's always interesting. They got Washington too, which is another one. USC, UCLA. I mean, the Big Ten is really impressive. One of the things that I really liked about the Indiana coach was he had a quote up there, and he was talking about how he's just going with the SEC philosophy, which is you play a bunch of pancakes the first 3 weeks, and then you get into the football season as opposed to scheduling. Because they were asking, they go, "Hey, your schedule looks kind of weak." He goes, "Looks just like the SEC, huh?" I mean, yeah, you gotta love that. This Big Ten SEC thing they've been bonking heads for a while now, so sooner or later we'll get some answers. But the Big Ten has bounced back in a big way. So anyway, Thanks so much, Justin, for coming with us. Really appreciate that. And what time tomorrow? If I remember, it's going to be 1 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. I don't know if John will be here or not. If he's not, we'll have Justin again. Giddy up.